I was not out outside, at night looking for UFOs. I wasn't UFO hunting. I was open to the subject. And then we did a patrol. We did mostly like the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and just south of Florida. So I'm on top of the boat after midnight. I'm looking around. I'm scanning the sky with night vision goggles. I'm also using regular military, just regular binoculars, and then these old school giant binoculars as well. And if you see anything in the sky or in the water, anything at all passing the front of the boat, the back of the boat, you have to report it. So I look at them, I look through my regular binoculars, look through my night vision goggles. I'm seeing them and I'm thinking it's a satellite or it's something, I don't know, something that can be detected. Next thing I know, there's like 10 people up there. Then there's 20 people up there. We're all looking at this like, what is this? And the radar man, supposedly, he said that nothing was on the radar, yet the object was close enough that it should be on the radar. And I was like, I looked around at the other shipmates, and I'm like, oh my God, you see that? If it was military, they put all of us at risk because we had the right by law in 1999 that if someone didn't ID themselves, we could engage, meaning we could fire at them with a weapon. But you're going to see a lot of strange things. You will see UFOs.
Can you say again? Because what I thought I heard you say was that when you joined the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard told you that you will see UFOs. Is that what? Did I hear that correctly?
The following program is presented for general information, education and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be advice of any kind. The content, views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individuals involved. The use of information on this program is at the user's own discretion.
Welcome, one and all, wherever and whenever you may be. This is Universal Disclosure, meeting the moment. My name is Mike, an active UAP field investigator here in Southern California, with my co-host.
I'm Reverend Stu in Melbourne, Australia.
Thank you, Reverend Stu. It's good to see you. How's it going today?
Thank you, Mike. Great to see you. I'm having a great day, and I'm very excited about this guest. This is a close friend of mine we're interviewing today.
That's awesome. I can't wait either. Before we do that, though, I wanted to just bring up a quick point of order, and I'll be 2 minutes or less, and define the term UAP. Some people might not know about it, or they've heard maybe some different things in our previous episodes. UAP replaced the term UFO, unidentified flying object. And as I know it, it was Mr. Luis Elizondo, formerly of the CIA and the Pentagon, who was the person credited for the rebranding into UAP. It originally stood for Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. And it was, in part, mostly the mission of that was to take away the stigma of UFO so we could have these conversations openly. And for that, thank you, sir. And it wasn't but a little bit like the blink of an eye before the Tic Tac became public that the UAP sort of rebrand happened. Since then, Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon became Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon. And the reason for that is to incorporate the transmedium nature of these craft. Incidentally, one of the 5 observables is the transmedium nature. What that means is they can fly through outer space, Earth's atmosphere, and under waters, whether it's oceans or lakes. Those are sometimes called, always called, USOs, Unidentified Submersible Objects. But nonetheless, as of this moment, subject to change in the future, UAP stands for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon, to incorporate a wider range of the phenomenon, as it were.
Thank you, Mike. That's a good explanation. Now, I'm not being cynical here, but I want to ask the question, is the rebranding partly so they can say, listen, we're really sorry we didn't tell you about UFO and threatened witnesses, but you're all over it right from the start with UAP. No problem right there.
That's a good point. I don't know. Could very well be. How do you lie yourself out of a lie, right? It's an interesting conundrum to be in, but where I think there's a lot of forward motion on that. Anyways, I just wanted to put that out there just for clarity. But Stuart, would you please do the honors of introducing our next guest?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a close friend of mine named Andrew Radziewicz, who has worked as a United States Coast Guard and worked as in the New York City Fire Department as a firefighter. He's had some amazing experiences, which I've heard about before, but I'm absolutely thrilled that he's come here to share them with us. Um, he now lives in Australia here, so he doesn't live very far from me, in fact. And he's married a beautiful Australian lady. In fact, I had the honour to sing at their wedding, which was fantastic.
Nice.
He's got a beautiful family, and I'm just absolutely thrilled that he's been here. Fantastic.
That's awesome. I can't wait to meet Andrew. So let's just bring him in, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Radziewicz. All right, Andrew, welcome to Universal Disclosure. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, so we like to sort of break the ice with a musical question. I don't know if you know how Stuart and I met, but we're musicians and artists and such. What's your favorite song, or who's your favorite musical artist, and why?
So growing up, I loved Led Zeppelin. They were absolutely amazing. Stairway to Heaven, so many songs, so many good memories as a kid. I would say I like them so much because that was my uncle's favorite band, and my uncle actually had the Led Zeppelin album cover with the it's the angel with the wings spread, like the man that looks like the angel with the wings spread. And he got my grandfather passed away, John Mann. My uncle Pete got my grandfather's signature signed under that in a tattoo on my uncle as well. So it's a lot of meaning with that band. Yeah, amazing.
Wow.
Nice. Very
Powerful. And that's big part of my spiritual journey, and everything that I have done and still do is tied directly to my family. My uncle Pete that got that tattoo, he was a New York City police officer, Navy veteran, 9/11 survivor, and then he passed away, about a year ago, and all part of my journey. Big stuff here.
That's really amazing. So can you just sort of briefly go over your time with the fire department of New York City and the Coast Guard? What made you decide to even get into that, and how long were you involved in all that?
So I grew up in New York, in Long Island, New York, in a little place called Floral Park, just at the edge of New York City, beginning of Long Island. And I come from a big family of military, Navy, Marine Corps, New York City Police, New York City Firefighters. So not everyone did that, but it was kind of like accepted. Like if you did it, cool. You didn't have to, but if you did it, it was like, all right. So I guess I was kind of inspired to do that from a very young age. Like, oh, I want to go in the Navy. Why? Because my Uncle John, my Uncle Pete, my grandfather Jack. And then when I said to my Uncle John, I go, I'm going to go in the Navy. And he goes, no, you're not. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you're going to go in the Coast Guard. I go, why? He goes, trust me. And I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, it's like the Navy, just smaller. They'll take better care of you. And I'm so glad I listened to him. He gave me great advice. Being an 18, 19-year-old kid, you don't know anything. You just think, oh, I'm going to do that because that person does it. But he gave me some great advice. I was so happy that at 19 years old, I decided to enlist because I knew I didn't want to go to school full time. I didn't really kind of want to work full time. I wanted to travel, wanted to enjoy my life. I wanted to see things. And he goes, and go in the military because you got to do something. You got to have a job, but you're going to get paid a good salary. You're going to get taken care of, and you'll see the world. And he was absolutely right.
Nice. So then how long were you in with the Coast Guard and the fire department?
Yep. So I got in the Coast Guard in 1999. So I did 2 years. I got in and out just before 9/11. That was active duty. So my active duty time was pre 9/11. So it was a different Coast Guard. And then after I got out, I had a break where I was a electrician for about 5 years. I worked for a guy who was in the Coast Guard. So I got a job as an electrician. I lived out east in Long Island, a place called the Hamptons. And in that middle time, 5 years, I was an electrician in the Union. And then I got on the fire department in April of 2006. But my dad was a firefighter at the time. He was a firefighter from 1980 until about 2013. He did like 33 years on the job. So yeah, wow. My family was around it, kind of waiting for me, waiting in the wings. My dad said he would wait until I got hired to retire. And then I got on in 2006 and he stayed like, almost another decade. So it was pretty cool. I got to actually work with my dad. I went to a couple fires with him. Like, that's incredible. Yeah. Like to actually be on the job together at the same time and go to a fire together. That was very, very special. So yeah, it was an amazing, amazing career.
That's awesome, and very lucky to be able to work with your dad as well, especially on something so important, and to be a first responder like that. My hat's off to you for that. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's an amazing career choice, and a selfless thing to do. So with this show, of course, is about UAP, commonly referred to as UFOs, right? But when you were in the Coast Guard or in the fire department, did you have any type of sightings or experiences at that point, or?
Yeah, yeah. So when I was in the Coast Guard, like I said, I was 19. So prior to that, I was not out outside, at night looking for UFOs. I wasn't UFO hunting. I was open to the subject, no doubt about it. I love that TV show, Unsolved Mysteries. I'd watch that with my grandmother religiously, like, oh, maybe these things are possible, like maybe life after death. So I kind of had these conversations with my grandmother prior to going in the Coast Guard. But I wasn't hunting, I wasn't ghost hunting, nothing like that. I think I kind of just lived a pretty normal life, like like a kid would, a young man. I love playing ice hockey. I was stationed in the Coast Guard down in Florida, so you do your basic training in New Jersey, in Cape May, New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore, and you do 3 months there, and then they assign you somewhere. So you have no idea where you're going to go. You could go anywhere from New Jersey to Kodiak, Alaska.
Oh, wow.
Difference, for people listening, if you look on a map, if you look at the weather, you look at the environment, Kodiak, Alaska is very cold. It's not for everyone. So, of course, no one wants to go there unless you want that. Unless that's your thing and you want to go there, that's probably not the most desirable place, and you're very isolated out in Alaska. Me, I guess I was pretty open, like, hey, whatever, I'll go anywhere. It doesn't matter. But then I heard all this talk and I'm like, you know what? I'd like to go to Florida. Was saying that, I remember I put in to go to South Florida, and then when our orders came out, I remember there was a guy on the bunk above me, and he was from Chicago, and we talked a lot. He was married, he had kids, and we both put in to go to Florida. We're like, oh, maybe we'll end up going to the same unit. You know what I mean? Like, we'll have a career together, and all these things you're fantasizing and thinking about. And we got our orders, and I got St. Petersburg, Florida, and he got Kodiak, Alaska.
Dang.
So he went all the way. I never saw the guy again, just because it's a big job once you get on and going. But you just never know, and you just pack your bags and you go. And then I went to South Florida, and then we did a patrol. We did mostly like the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and just south of Florida. So people that are listening, if they're not familiar, if you look at America, the very south portion of the U.S. states, there's Florida there. Just south of Florida, we covered Florida, and then just south there, all those little Caribbean islands, Curacao, Cuba, Barbados, Trinidad, all those beautiful little islands there. We went all there, and mostly we were dealing with migrants that were trying to illegally come into the country, drug interdiction, and anything that might look strange and out of the ordinary, which we get into this. So my first couple of patrols, normal. Of the ordinary, migrants, nothing normal, right? So migrants, drug interdiction. Literally, at times, people would try to sneak in drugs into the country. Tons. I've seen tons of cocaine and illegal substances. They would just come by in a speedboat, drop them out. Someone would come by and try to grab them and race them in. And then we, the Coast Guard, would chase them. And hopefully we catch them. Usually we don't, because their boats probably go about 3 times as fast as ours. They have illegal boats with illegal engines, but we would try to triangulate on them. So we try to just catch them and try to prevent them from picking up their substances. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And one time we're on a patrol. So this is probably I'd say my 5th time out at sea. So I had a couple tours out at sea. It wasn't my very first one, my 5th tour out at sea. We're down in that area, down in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, that area. And it's late at night, and my job, I was the night watchman. So at night, every 4 hours, you do a shift. Everyone rotates through 4-hour times. You do either midnight to 4 a.m., and then you also do noon to 4, or you do 4 to 8 and 8 to 12. It's broken up into 3 sections. So I was on 12 to 4s. So noon to 4, and then midnight to 4, I had to go drive the boat, go on top, and then observe everything. And I had a partner. So one of us would drive, One of us would be up top observing, and then in where the like command center is, basically where they have all the radar equipment and everything, that's where everyone was. That's where the officer on duty is. That's what we call the OOD, officer on duty, officer on deck. And the radar man and everyone is, all the equipment is. So I'm on top of the boat after midnight. I'm looking around, I'm scanning the sky with night vision goggles. I'm also using regular military, just regular binoculars, and then these old school giant binoculars as well. I'm looking about every 5 to 10 minutes. You're supposed to just scan. And if you see anything in the sky or in the water, anything at all passing the front of the boat, the back of the boat, you have to report it, because if any object, whether it's a boat or anything, is out there that crosses the front or flies by you or goes by the front or back of you, anything that crosses you has to go on the radio. There's an emergency channel. It used to be channel 10. They go on channel 10 and they have to ID themselves. We don't ask. We don't say, hey, who are you? No, you just have to say, we're crossing the front of your vessel. We are so-and-so. They give you the number, the registered number of the plane, and then they take off. Well, this one night, I'm looking up. So if you look straight out to the boat, straight out and just to the left, okay, that's the best way to describe it. I'm looking straight out to the boat, just to the left and up a little bit. I see these two objects, and they look silver, they look round, and they're moving, one slightly in front of the other one. They're moving. So I look at them. I look through my regular binoculars, look through my night vision goggles. I'm seeing them, and I'm thinking it's a satellite, or it's something, I don't know, something that can be detected. This is 1999, so there wasn't really much talk like there is of like drones and satellite. You know what I mean? It's a totally different world 25 years ago. But I'm like, it's got to be something. Maybe it's a military thing. Maybe I don't know what the term is. So I called down below to the officer on deck. There was a tube. Literally, there's no phone. It was a tube. You pull down the tube. Hey, this is what I see. And they can look out from where they are. They look on the radar too. Next thing I know, the OOD, the officer on deck, he comes up and he's looking with me. And we're both looking with our binoculars. Next thing I know, there's like 10 people up there. Then there's 20 people up there. We're all looking at this like, what is this? It is. And the radar man, supposedly, he said that nothing was on the radar, yet the object was close enough that it should be on the radar. Radar picks up usually everything, as far as I knew, in 1999 at least. And they're like, we don't have anything. Now, after watching these two objects move, they were moving just slowly across, moving across for about 10, 15 minutes approximately. I wasn't checking my watch exactly because I was so fixated. I didn't want to lose sight or track of the object.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, did you take a photo? I said, no, I didn't want to grab anything. Even if I had a camera, I didn't want to lose sight of what it was, because you're on duty anyway. You can't lose sight of it, just in case that's a threat. Because that object, when it was going by our vessel, it did not identify itself. So we take that as a threat, because we don't know what it is if you're not identifying yourself. So at that point, we're getting ready just in case anything's going to happen. And all of a sudden, the two objects move and they come together. And now when they came together as one, they just vanished. They didn't shoot off in any direction. They didn't accelerate. There was no trail. There was no sound. They came together as one, and then they were gone. And I was like, I looked around at the other shipmates, and I'm like, oh my God, you see that? I had never seen anything like that in person in my life before, but it was just there. They merged together and gone.
Wow. Andrew, you're in the Florida area. And now, how close is that to the Bermuda Triangle area down that way? Is that in the same location?
Yeah, not far at
Whoa.
all. That's not too far. That's like, so if you're looking at the map, you're looking at USA on a map, and you kept going east past it, that's where the triangle would be. Now, I know also historically, like if people look this up and they Google that area just off the coast of Florida, there are, just like the Bermuda Triangle, but there are other areas where vessels, craft, unidentified things have appeared and vanished. And there are also, I want to be clear, just like the Bermuda Triangle, there are military installations, meaning there are U.S. Navy submarine stations that are marked, meaning you know where they are. and then there are ones that are unmarked. So I don't, at that moment, I remember people asking me, saying, do we think it's military or what is it? I said, well, if it was military, they put all of us at risk, because we had the right by law in 1999 that if someone didn't ID themselves, we could engage, meaning we could fire at them with a weapon.
Wow.
It's a big deal to be able to do that. And this is not today, like where everyone's talking about UFOs. This is the old school military. Like, they did things a little more cowboyish, you know what I mean? So they would not have hesitated if there was a slight threat. So if that was a black ops or a secret program or something, I say to people, I can't prove that it wasn't. However, thing else that happened in my life after has proven to me that no. That was not some sort of secret government program, because all of these spiritual and sightings and everything else that has come after that, for me, that was like the beginning of the synchronicity after synchronicity in my life that followed.
Wow.
Really?
So that was a bit of a turning point then in your spiritual journey. Is that possible?
Yeah, huge. I was still I was still young. Yeah, I still a young man, right? I wasn't a kid. I was a young man. I was serving my country. I could have gotten killed for going to work. I couldn't even drink legally. I could vote, but I could die at any moment, right? And it's dangerous with what I'm doing. So that was a big thing for me. And I needed to know. I needed to know what it was that I saw. And that's like I said, 1999. So 2001 in May, there was a guy that went to Washington, D.C. and did a press conference named Dr. Stephen Greer. And he had all these ex-military people with him. So I'm like, wait. This guy is claiming that he's got military people that were involved with a cover-up or interactions with UFOs. Maybe some of these people explain what I saw. This is pretty cool. Maybe I should meet this guy one day. Now, that's in 2001, May of 2001. This is the, beginning of the internet and, all these things. So I'm not reaching people at that point. I wasn't like emailing or reaching out. I just remember seeing that, hearing about this. And I waited to go meet him. But in 2011, I flew out to the desert in California and met him. I became a New York City firefighter in 2006. And then in 2011, when I had enough money, me and my partner, we flew out to the desert in California while I was a firefighter. That was about 5-6 years. I flew out to the desert in California and I met this guy, and he was claiming, there's a way that you can actually proactively communicate with these objects and they'll appear. Like, really? Is that possible, or is this guy pulling my leg? I have to see this, because if this is real, maybe that could answer some of the things I saw in the military. And if there's other credible people doing this, I would give that a lot of street credit. Okay. That was like, okay, if I'm going and it's like other normal people, you know what I mean? Not some weirdos. It's like just like regular dudes and regular people like I grew up with. And all right, then maybe there's something to this. And I could say, when I flew out to the desert in October of 2011, there was the most amazing people I met there that I am still friends with today. Guys I made contact with, a guy named James Iandoli. He has a podcast, Engaging the Phenomena. I met James there in October of 2011 with Dr. Greer. We did CE5 together for a week. And then we had tons of UFO encounters after that event in New York together, upstate New York together. We had dozens and dozens of craft we've seen and things. So, oh yeah, this, like I said, it sparked something. It piqued an interest, but I had to go after it. After I saw what I saw in the military in the late 90s, I wasn't having UFO sightings all the time after. It wasn't like that. I went about my life. The people in the Coast Guard were like, you're going to see a lot of things, you're going to see a lot of things at sea, Raz. Like, just get ready. If there's anything that's an emergency or a threat, that's different. But you're going to see a lot of strange things. You will see UFOs. And even recently, a whistleblower came forward to Dr. Greer, who was in the Coast Guard, who was on a crash retrieval team, that they retrieved a UFO from the ocean and had all these hieroglyphs and things on it. So, like, if you talk to guys that I served with, people will say, do you have any witnesses, anyone that was there? I have a friend, Jeff, who retired, who said to me, I'm going to come on your show. He told me to come on my show because he goes, dude, after you saw what you saw on the boat, he goes, you did your time. He goes, but after, he goes, him personally, He goes, I have had a career sightings. I'm like, really? But when guys are still serving, I never will say any of their names. That's not appropriate. I would never bring up someone's name. I respect people's careers. When they want to come forward, when they want to share, that's their business. Because I know talking about this subject, being in the military, being a firefighter, even having a career, having a pension, having a family, whatever, this subject, once again, it's for anyone, but it's not for everyone to talk about publicly, because I know how this ridicule factor goes.
But for context, I just wanted to tell you that I actually met Andrew at a C5 event, and I've seen this phenomena with him, with a group of people. I've seen it just with the two of us, Andrew. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and from a public event where you go with people, 20, 30 people, and that's great. It's great to network. It's great to meet like-minded people. You meet all sorts of people. People bring their dogs. Sometimes they bring their kids. Hey, as long as they're open, loving, and you have that childlike Zen mind, beginner mind, like a very raw, organic, just to, like a kid when I go with my daughter to the play center or the park, like that. If you have that mentality going in, I can speak from my experience. I have that every time I go make contact. That's what I get in return, is a beautiful, peaceful, loving experience where Stu has come to my home. And we've gone in my yard, right on the beach where I live, one house away, right on the ocean. And we have attracted this phenomena. I feel that once the phenomena is aware that you're aware of it, bonds. And then there's like a two-way relationship back and forth where you can communicate. I mean, what do you think, Stu? Do you feel the same way?
I've seen it. Yeah. I try and bring that open-hearted feeling, and I bring that in all my life. So it's a purity of heart.
And that's the thing, this experience, and talking about spirituality and religion and all of these things, this experience, seeing this, that, okay, maybe there's more out there than what I've been told, what I believe. And this is all tied in here, because after I saw what I saw, after I met Dr. Greer and I saw the things in the sky and I came back, my grandmother passed away. She got old. She got sick. Unfortunately, she passed like people do. And I remember when I was a kid in 1993, when I was 13, I said to her while watching Unsolved Mysteries, I go, Graham, when you go to heaven one day, when you're with Grandpa and, you're up there and doing your thing, can you come back and give me a sign? I need something. I need more than just, a coin on the ground or a bird feather or a feeling of knowing you're okay. I need to know you'll come back. And she looked at me and she goes, I will. I'll give you a sign. Well, we kind of forgot about it. We never brought it up again. So 17, 18 years later, she transitions. And then right after she passed, I'll never forget it. I'm sitting in a restaurant with my mom in town where I grew up, in Borough Park, Long Island, a place called Jameson's. And a man comes in wearing a leather jacket, long hair, earrings. He comes up to me and my mom and he goes, did someone in your family just die? They had cancer on the outside of their face? Like, yeah. And he goes, which one of you were born on Easter Sunday? And my mom was born on Easter Sunday in 1956. So we were like, oh my God. And he's like, oh, I'm a psychic meeting. I'm doing a reading of the restaurant. We were like, oh yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good, man. So I got that validation too, as well. And I remember after that going outside at night saying, Graham, if you can hear me, can you show me something? I need to see something. I want to see something in the sky. And balls of light, these objects started appearing from that time in 2010 till now. I go outside. If I call to her, I ask for a sign, I also see these balls of light. So I feel in my heart, there's some sort of connection to my loved ones, definitely my grandmother and others that have transitioned, to my loved ones. And this phenomena and these things that I've questioned in my life, that after my grandmother died, when I went to my therapist, when I went to my priest, when I went to my family and said, where is she? Is she okay? How do we know? How do we really know? And my priest, who is a great guy, said to me, he goes, well, okay, she's in heaven. I said, but how do we really know? He goes, well, it says in the Bible, and we, because we have faith. And I go, that's not good enough, Father. I need to know. But how do I find out? He's like, we just got to believe, got to have faith. And that's what took me on the mission to, let me take everything I've learned, not throw it out, but keep it around, and then keep going and see what else I can find that feels right to make sense in this journey of life. And that's just what I've done this whole time, is try to keep learning. I try to stay green through this whole thing.
Wow. So I want to sort of get back to this, but before, I did want to interrupt you earlier. Can you say again? Because what I thought I heard you say was that when you joined the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard told you that you will see UFOs. Is that what? Did I hear that correctly?
So when I was in the Coast Guard, my shipmate said, Andrew, because I said, oh man, I was all excited after I saw what I saw, and you know, I worked on my boat back then. It was 70 men, 2 women, 72. It didn't matter. We don't care about that stuff. It was just 70 and 2. Everyone was cool, though. I could talk to anyone from the top down to the newest guy there. Everyone was cool. I was really excited, though. You know, I wasn't brand new. I had a couple tours at sea, but I was really jacked up. And the other guys there, you know, that had more time at sea, 20 years at sea, people that were we call salty, meaning they have a lot of sea time. They've had a lot of salt water hit them. So real salty guys, literally. I mean, it's real salty guys. You know, I was like, hey, man, blah, 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 blah. I saw this. And they're like, a lot of things, and you're going to see them through your career. So basically, unless there's a threat or the Men in Black show up or something, you know, funky happens, you just keep it moving. Yeah, maybe, you know, if you have a journal, you want to take notes, but you're going to see these things. It's not a big deal. The amount of people that have listened to shows like this over the podcasts I've done over the years and have seen things while they were in the military and then have contacted me after and said, oh my God, I'm still in, or I was in, and I saw these things we couldn't explain, or had missing time, or have had some bizarre things happen. Oh, yeah. I know, like the Air Force, I remember the Air Force actually had a manual on how to deal and interact with this. Now, when I was in basic training, I didn't see any manual like that in the Coast Guard, but I heard the Air Force actually has a manual on handling the phenomena or a possible interaction with something, you know. But when I was in the 90s, they didn't talk about that. Maybe they have something now. So yeah, they were kind of setting me up for if something else happens. Now, after I had that sighting, though, I didn't have any other sightings in the Coast Guard. Not me personally, but like I said, I just heard from a friend, and there's other people that were on that boat with me that are still in. My one friend that was in with me, my buddy Jeff, told me, dude, I have had a lifetime of contact. I had it after that event, you know, after you had what you had. I saw things in the Coast Guard, and then he told me stories about his, you know, personal life, and I'm like, I got to get you on the show, man, because bringing this credibility up, people that are ready, if you want to talk about it, if you want to come forward, absolutely. If you don't, no problem. I totally get it, but it's like a mainstream topic now. You know, you turn on CNN or anything, and at some point they're going to talk about UAPs and Disclosure Act or something, right? So this is meant to be. When I first got into this, and I learned how to communicate and do CE5, close encounter of the fifth kind, meaning human-initiated contact, proactively communicating with UFOs, extraterrestrials, the beings on the craft. When I learned how to do that, I literally visions that in the future, we were going to have a time just like this. And then things have happened, literally, that I can name, things that have happened that I saw. This is going to happen. These things have happened, and we're currently in that time. We're like, literally, I'm like, oh my God, I see these things coming in the future. These things are happening. Just for a small example, I met a lovely lady from Australia named Mary Rodwell.
Oh, yeah.
And the first time I met her, Mary, I don't know you, like, at all. I don't know you from anything, you know. I go, but I see you and I together, and we're sharing this message with the world through TV, media. We're speaking at some sort of giant forum where everyone could hear this message. I don't know exactly how, because I don't know anyone in that space. At the time, I was a firefighter. I'm a fireman. I'm not doing that stuff, but I just see us. We're together, and we're doing this back to back, and we're sharing this message. And I'm like thinking, oh, I should probably have everyone say this to her. This sounds crazy. Well, that was in 2017 when I met her. Fast forward to about a year ago, I was in a TV show here in Australia called Close Encounters Down Under. And they show me, my testimony, my footage. And then as they're showing me, they go to Mary Rodwell for an analysis of what I'm experiencing. And they didn't tell me that when I was doing the show. They didn't tell me they were going to have Mary analyze it, just go over, give a little talk about what I was personally experiencing. So I was like, I literally,
Wow.
vision of that, told her, and then it happened. That is unbelievable. That's like I said, I haven't said that to people. I haven't gone around saying, hey, me and you were going to do, no, no, no. This is something I said to her right first day I met her, and it ended up happening. So it's amazing when that stuff comes to reality, and it's a beautiful thing where you're sharing your experience, you're helping other people, you're helping, people evolve that want to, helping people grow, it's a beautiful thing to be part of.
Wow. Okay, so I want to delve into this a little bit more, and I don't want to come across the wrong way. I am aware of who Dr. Stephen Greer is. He's a very well-known person, very well-respected for decades, and he's been pushing forward for the disclosure aspects in Washington and various places for a very long time. I totally hats off to that. That said, me personally, I'm a little bit skeptical of the CE5 protocols, and I'm wondering what you think of. On one hand, I'm open to, obviously, UAP are real. I wouldn't be spending the ginormous amounts of time that I do with this particular show, but I'm open to the idea of contact, conscious, intentional communication with these, whatever these things are, right? But I'm not sold on the idea that we can do it at will, or that we're essentially contacting ET all of the time. And I mean, it's just a long question, but I've been thinking about this for a while. On one hand, and again, I don't mean to be disrespectful, I'm of the mind that like ET isn't going to respond to our beck and call. So I'm wondering if you think, are these actual things or beings what we would consider, I mean, non-human intelligence can be, ET, but it could also be spirits or things like that. You've mentioned like your loved ones and such. What is your thoughts on that? Is it a mixture of stuff? Is it exclusively spiritual beings or loved ones from the past, or is it like what we would consider ET? I'm really wanting to, for someone who has studied with Dr. Stephen Greer, because I don't have the opportunity yet to ask him directly, but what is that like? What would you say about all that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So even with meeting Dr. Greer, when I got back to New York, I also connected with the Monroe Institute. So people that are listening, maybe they're not familiar, they could look them up. But basically, the Monroe Institute has their own protocols. They have the gateway process and these meditations you can do. Dr. Greer did this when I met him. This is 2011. And he had done that already probably for, maybe 15 years or whatever, so maybe since the 90s. The Monroe Institute did it since like the 60s and 70s, a different way. So I'm like, let me find them. It's not Dr. Greer. It's not that. They call them non-corporal entities. They have a different term, whatever you want to call them. They don't say extraterrestrial. They don't say that, at least when I did it with them. So I went to New York City, into Times Square, into a lady's apartment. Their base is in Virginia. So that's an 8-hour drive. I was like, I'm not going to Virginia. Wow, they have a satellite group. They have them all over the world. Go there. And we did out-of-body traveling, astral projecting, out-of-body experiences, all of that stuff. That was incredible too. And we communicated. Everyone had their different communication systems, what they were communicating with. They had a step-by-step guide that they did that also they, have studied scientifically. So I put a lot more credence with that too, things they were doing, the studies they did. They also did a lot of work with the U.S. Army, and I've also heard of stories of people doing, the CIA paperwork where they did the gateway process, and it's out there. You can read about it now. And as well, when I got into this world and I shared about what I was experiencing, that lady, Mary Rodwell, was lovely. She goes, you should find a geneticist and find out if maybe your DNA is different, because I think you're activating some of your dormant or junk DNA. It sounds like, whoa, you're activating something that most people don't. There's something, contact, meditation, out-of-body experience, something is going on in you. So I'm like, all right, well, I find a geneticist to talk to me. That's crazy. I can't just look one up, through the fire department. And, hey, man, I'm seeing, UFOs. They'll put me in a psych ward. So how do I do that, right? So once again, synchronicity. I remember a friend of mine knew Dr. Gary Nolan, lady Diana Pasolka. You might have heard of her. She knows Dr. Gary Nolan and a bunch of people I know. So I reached out to him, and he was lovely. And I explained to him what I was experiencing. And he's like, we'll talk, we'll Skype. So we talked, we emailed a bunch too, and he's like, yeah, I don't think you're crazy. I've heard this story. I know what's going on. I want to just hear what you're experiencing. How do you do what you're doing? How do you do it? I said, basically through meditation. I'm communicating, I'm having some sort of contact. And he said to me, just be very careful, because people have had beautiful, lovely experiences. And then at some point, sometimes it changes, and then it's not so pretty. And then it's not so good. And then some people do some things, or they have poltergeists, or they have some horrible things. Now, for me personally, since I saw that craft in 99 in the military till now, 25, 26 years later, I personally have not had anything like that happen, or any negative experiences, what people would say an abduction type thing. That's just not me personally.
Now, there was an article about you in the New York Post. Could you tell our audience how that came about? What led up to this article being written about you?
So, traveling back and forth to Australia. I went to Australia in March of 2018. I met my wife now, Jess, who everyone probably knows out there if they're listening, if they've heard of me. But I met a girl when I was traveling, was coming to Australia. I met this girl. We dated long distance. We hit it off right away. We knew right away. We're getting married. We're going to get engaged, married, the whole thing. We just knew. You just know sometimes. So we did that. We were planning, doing these things. And then I'll never forget, like July 2nd, was sitting on the beach in New York on the beach with the sun, with her kids, we're chilling in Coney Island, right? We were having UFO contact. So I met this girl in Australia. We had contact. She came back to New York, to my home in Brighton Beach, next to Coney Island, New York, and Brooklyn. We had contact every night, recorded, documented, filmed, analyzed, studied, everything. We got it. Have a beautiful time. I get a text from a journalist at the New York Post that I've never heard of. Oh, my name is so-and-so, Anna, and we're writing an article about you. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Usually people say like, hey, we're writing an article about you. We'd like to interview you. Comment, not, oh yeah, we writing an article about you. It's being released, tomorrow. I'm like, oh, what? What are you talking about? And I'm thinking, oh my God, phenomena or something negative, right? It's got to be. So I do a quick Google search of who this author is. All of her prior articles, hit pieces on first responders, firemen, cops. I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, she wrote an article about a firefighter cooking in the kitchen. And, she said that more firemen were getting injured in fires in the kitchen than actual fires. Well, the reality is most firemen, when they go to fires, do not report injuries. That's the reality. Most guys get burnt, break things, get banged up. What a very small fraction do, unless you're like really hurt. Guys don't want to report that. So if a guy's getting injured in a kitchen fire, which a guy I worked with, a bottle of cooking spray was above the oven. It exploded in his face. He got second-degree burns on his face, and she's writing an article making fun of him. So that's the kind of person I'm like, my God, man. Okay. So I called a lawyer. I called Ray Hernandez. Hernandez is well known in the UFO community. He's also an attorney. I said, Ray, what do I do? I don't even know what to say. He goes, give no comment. We're not saying anything. You don't want this article. But I'm like, oh man, I got to let the fire department know. If they drop this article, I don't want any piece of this. I don't want this right now. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in the news right today. I didn't ask for that. You know what I mean? I want to do this the right way. I at least would rather want to sit down. Why don't you sit down and interview me? So I go, why don't you did all this research on me. I wrote to the girl, I go, you did all this research. Why wouldn't you want to sit down with me and talk to me and interview me first? You did all these months of research. You're going to drop an article that you want me to comment on that I don't even know what you wrote. How can I comment? She writes back and goes, oh yeah, that's fair. It's fair. That's unfair. You did all that research. You're going to drop an article and potentially ruin my life. I don't know what you're going to write. You're not even telling me. That's wrong, man. So once again, you're a good journalist. You write about somebody. I know good journalists. Ralph Blumenthal, Leslie Kean. They write about somebody. They spoke to them, right? They at least say, "Hey, we spoke to so and so. This is their comment." They don't do hit pieces, man. They're good journalists. So I knew, man, I don't know what to do. I called the New York City Fire Department, their press desk, and I know by making this call, once again, my dad was a fireman. My uncle was a fireman for 27 years. My roots go deep into the job, man. If an article drops about me talking about UFOs and whatever, gonna know, you know what I mean? So I was like, all right, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I called the press desk and I told them everything. I had to. I said, hey man, this is the truth. I've had contact and I've communicated with spirits and blah 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 blah. And their response to me was, we ran it up to the top, meaning to the chief of the FDNY. Everyone knows, we talked about this, and no one has a problem with what you're doing, Andrew. Actually, what you're doing is good on your days off. You're going, you're helping people, you're doing positive things. You're not talking about anything negative or anything bad that's happening, no weird stuff. You're helping people. Actually, we need more guys like you on their days off that go and help for nothing. You're not charging anyone. They were, so I'm like, all right. So they're like, we're going to go to bat for you, man. We'll help you out. So they fought post and said, don't run the article. Why do you want to run the article? The guy's telling you, don't run this. Leave him alone. He doesn't want the exposure. And why are you writing it? And the girl goes, people have a right to know he works for the city of New York. They go, yeah, but he has a family. He's a person. He doesn't want this exposure. He said to you, please don't do this. And she's like, well, we're going to do it anyway. Well, that was like July 2nd. On July 28th, they ran it. Now, I have a feeling between the 2nd and 28th, they probably made a few edits, right? Because I'm sure whatever they sent, I would think the fire department, if anything, said, well, we want to see what you're writing. And if you write anything, any defamation, you're done. Well, the fire department's going to sue you. So they ran the article. I was okay with it. What I thought at first was a curse. Now, we're talking now, that was in 2018. Now, 5-6 years later, that was a blessing. At the time, though, I didn't want any part of that because I wanted to organically let the guys know at work. I didn't want anyone to come in and open the paper and go, whoa, whoa, because I talked about a lot of things. Now, some guys already knew, and they knew the article was coming. They had a heads up, okay? So they were cool. The guys I work with, there was no problem there. But I was just worried about the whole job. You know what I mean? Like, this is a giant job, man. 12,000 guys. Everyone knows my family. I don't want to be looked at as a weirdo. But this gave me, a different type of identity with first responders globally. People reached out to me, opportunities and doors open. When some doors close, other doors open. When you have the eyes to see that and you realize, whoa, I'm going to turn this into a blessing. If I saw that person that wrote the article today, I'd thank them. Whatever your intent was, maybe you didn't get the result you wanted, just like sometimes it works the other way. So maybe I had a little faith or I trusted the process or whatever, but it worked out to meet the most amazing people like Stuart, like my wife, because I ended up after the article ran, by meeting people, sharing it on social media, I met the best people ever.
Oh, thank you. That's so beautiful. So you had some experiences while you were working as a firefighter as well. Would you mind exploring some of that?
Yeah. So that's really cool too. A lot of people out there that are on the job, when you see something, there's no way to report it. You can't write up a report as an officer that you saw a UFO. I don't think so, right? Same thing. If you wrote that in paperwork, get a visit. First thing they're going to do, they would come visit you, and then they would send a drug testing unit. Straight up. Crazy. Now, guys have seen this. Guys have filmed this. Guys have interacted with it. But no one's actually officially on the books written something up. At least I don't think so. So, yep. So December 26th, it was like a day or two after Christmas in 2015. I had making contact for about 5 years with spirit, with UFOs, ET, whatever you want to call it. Whatever this is. If people want to say it's demons, whatever, call it whatever you want. But when the heat is on, this is what matters. I'm at work. And I just had a feeling at the beginning of the night. Sometimes we'll come in, the guys will talk, and we're like, wow, I feel like we're going to go to a job tonight. Like we're going to go to a fire. You just get this feeling. But what it is, it's a spiritual thing, but all the guys will be like, yeah, man, I got a feeling like we're going to a good job tonight. I don't know what it is. Something about the energy, man. We weren't looking at the moon cycle. I'm sure if we did, it was like a full moon or something crazy, but we were just like, it's it's like a night or whatever, like a certain night, you get this feeling. We had this feeling something was going to happen. So I was a little more than, you know what I mean? I was ready to go like all night. And it's after midnight. I'm up on the 3rd floor gym. I look out the window and I see a golden orb gliding across the city skyline. See the city skyline from my firehouse. So no, this is normal to me. Like, I'm like, wow, but still like, wow. But see that and I'm like, coming? You know what I mean? Like, is that a sign? Once again, is that the next sign to something coming? All of a sudden, I could smell smoke. Just ran down the stair, go right there. We had like a pole hole to slide down the old school fire pole, you know? I jumped to the pole. I'm going down, sliding down the pole. Boom. Whole intercom. We're going to a fire. And like, I smelled it. Boom. So I'm getting on the rig, on the fire truck. We're getting our stuff. We're gearing up. We're all talking about what we're going to do, where we're going to position. I'm hearing on the radio, we have water loss. There's firemen trapped. There's people trapped. We're not getting water on the fire. It's bad. So that's not what you want to hear showing up to a fire. That's the worst possible thing. Okay. Firemen trapped, water problems, people trapped. Water, put the fire out. If you don't have water, nothing's going to happen. So, oh my God, it's on. We call it, the stuff is on. Okay. So we're going down the block. The whole block is banked down with thick black smoke. Banked down, we call it. So it's really low to the ground and it's heavy coming down. So we're pulling up and I get off the rig. I'm getting my stuff. And I remember I look just to the front of the rig and all of a sudden I could see this purple, like almost like a sparkler on a 4th of July, the purple sparkler come in and I could see this come in and it's like an outline almost to the shape of a human, almost kind of an outline. And I could hear a voice, a female voice that sounded just like my grandmother say, Andrew, don't go in there. Now, at that point, my grandmother had passed away 4 or 5 years ago, and I could smell her 1980s old school Bill Blass perfume. Okay. I'm like, that smell. And when this happened, I said, there was smoke, there was fire, there was all these things going on. When I saw this, it's like everything froze quickly. Just, I saw this, it froze. I saw this come in. Maybe for like 2 or 3 seconds, just quick, froze, went back to the direction it came from. And now I'm like, my stuff, I'm walking to the front of the building. I'm like, go in. Oh, what do I do? Oh my God, this guy's in there already. What do I do? Oh, I don't want to, what do I do? Right? Like panicking in my head. I'm like, just stay calm, stay calm. Get to the front of the building. And the chief comes up. He goes, ladder 119. That's where I work, ladder 119. And he goes, ladder 119. It's actually 911 backwards, right? Crazy, right? Ladder 119, 119. Yeah, right. I just thought of that. It's wild. I worked in 119. It's my company. Wild, man. No coincidence. So you go up to the front of the building. We're getting ready. The chief comes. You're going in. And I look at the guy next to me. He's wearing the orange probationary firefighter patch. And I go, bro, hold on a second. And the guys are there. They're like, what? And it's just my company. It's like 4 or 5 guys. I'm like, hold on. And literally 30 to 40 seconds later, we were told to go into that top floor, the 4th floor, the top floor of the fire. Fire blew out of every window. We had been in that building. We'd gone in 30 to 40 seconds. We would have made it up to the top floor that quick. We would have been incinerated instantly.
Oh.
And thank God when that happened, there were no firemen yet in that area. People are bailing out, jumping out. And it just happened to be, there was a film crew. What are the chances? Someone was there with a camera. They have the explosion. Look it up on camera on YouTube. They have the video of blowing out of the top floor. Unbelievable. Like a movie, dude. Like literally. So I'm like, the guy next to me is like, how did you know that? What how did you know that? I go, yeah, how do you explain that? Right. I'm like, we'll talk about it later. After I go, my soul spoke to me. He's like, what? I didn't want to get into the whole Graham thing at that minute, but I did tell them eventually. I spoke about it on podcast, obviously, but I told them, I said, do you ever get a sense, feeling, or something coming in, telling you something about a life-saving encounter or something to do to not die, possibly? Listen to that, whether it's in the form of a feeling, a sense, a visual, an audio. We all have different senses, and I feel our body communicates with us. And then I feel something greater, something around us, also can communicate. Now, if I had not been doing meditation, C5, psychic development for the past 5 years, up until that moment, I don't know that I would have listened to that. You know, if that would have happened. I feel that by developing what I was developing, that I was able to receive that message. Whereas if I was just not doing that and, drinking alcohol every day, like a maniac or whatever, not taking care of myself, not looking after myself, doing all these bad things, and I wasn't doing anything spiritual at all, I'd be so foggy, I may not have even paid attention. I would have just Wow, ran in there. Who cares, bro? Like you do every other time. Because you never, ever, you don't disobey a direct order. If you're in the military, you're in the fire department, police department. If you disobey a direct order, it says in your manual, you could be fired or suspended, I'm sure. Or you're not working in that company ever again. Or God forbid something bad happened, have an answer why. And they don't want to hear your grandmother's spirit came.
Well, I actually wanted
you know what I mean? So yeah.
I wanted to ask about exactly that. When you were told to go into the building, it sounds like you were, I don't know what the correct term is, either the team leader, and the chief of that group, and you didn't go into the building for like 30 to 40 seconds. Was there anyone else around or above you saying, potentially vulgarly, get in there? Like how?
Yeah. Luckily, so it was so chaotic when we got to the front of the building. My officer was with another guy, I guess the guy driving is somebody. So like I wouldn't have said to my boss, going in, Lou. No. I said it out loud, hoping looking back now, I guess I was hoping, I hope my lieutenant is next to me because he heard that. I don't know where he was. He was with the chauffeur. They were parking the truck. They were doing something. They were probably talking to, when you go to a fire, the guys get all the equipment and then the officer goes to the command post where the bosses are, finding out what to do. So our officer was probably at the command post getting orders. We're coming to the front of the building with our stuff. And as we did that, the chief came by and said, you're going in. But our actual boss, our lieutenant that night, wasn't next to us. Because if that had happened, he would have said, get your ass in there. Of course. I couldn't have said, I don't know. But it just was, once again, I guess it wasn't meant to be. Now, after, of course, explaining it and saying everything, some guys were like, I'm going back, I'm going to go watch Sports Center. I could care less. That's guys. That's how they are. Other guys are like, tell me more, what's going on? And then that moment, though, that opened up a lot of the communication about everything else. Guys, once again, synchronicity started to happen. Guys were talking, people were talking, then guys are grabbing me on the side. Oh, hey, man, tell me what happened. Oh, yeah, I had something like that, too, happen at a fire. Oh, and then, you've seen this, you've seen that. And then next thing you know, the biggest, roughest, toughest guys that I've ever worked with would grab me on the side telling me about UFOs encounters that they had as little kids. Don't tell anyone, though. Don't tell anyone. Because I'm not going to tell anyone. It's all good. But I'm glad I'm hearing that because I knew it. I almost knew it. I'm not the only one, man. Come on. It's not just me. Maybe I just have the courage to speak up and honestly say, yeah, man, I saw something came in. It spoke to me. But you may not see that. Hear a voice. You might feel something. You might feel nauseous. You might throw up. If something speaks to you, connects with your soul at a fire, listen to that. They always say that, trust your intuition. They do say that in the fire department. Trust your intuition. If you get a feeling, you see something, say something. So I feel that you can help activate that, though. You can help train that. You don't have to just do nothing and then, that'll come up. No. That is a skill, that intuition, that psychic stuff, those abilities, that sixth sense. I can personally say, I feel we can develop that. And if first responders, especially, worked out and they train that muscle, which they are now, they're doing much more meditation, more qigong, more spiritual things. They're having those services available now to firefighters, where when I was in, it wasn't like that. Now they have, they have that now. They have free qigong yoga meditation. I know to FDNY guys, you can go for free and learn it and to do meditation classes, because it's a lot better than leaving work and going to drink 18 Bud Lights.
Yeah.
Right? Probably. So, and once again, what's the long-term impact? If I train that muscle, I can rely on that. If I go and get drunk, it causes all these horrible things, and I'm potentially a hazard at a fire. So the narrative, once again, the conversation is changing, where I was in that other element, though. I couldn't sit at the kitchen talking about this stuff and say, yeah, guys, I'm going to leave work and go meditate in my place in Brooklyn. Guys are like, we're going out for drinks, bro. You coming? You know what I mean? So you still want to be one of the guys, which I was one of the guys. It's just, I had this interest, or when guys would have 10 beers, they'd be like, hey, bro, I got to tell you something, blah, 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 blah. They tell you something crazy. And I'm like, hey, it's all good, man. I lived that life. I did whatever I did when I was younger. Now I'm on that spiritual journey. You know what I mean? I'm more concerned about my well-being and finding out these answers to things that once you learn that, for me, there's like no going back. Once a pickle, always a pickle.
Wow. To go back to the other question, I don't know if I got a satisfactory answer. When you're doing CE5, what is it you think that you're contacting or communicating with? Have you ever sort of brought in, I guess, for lack of a better term, like a physical craft, or are these more like ethereal, spiritual type of beings?
Oh yeah. So at first, when this all started, I would see lights at a distance, lights in the sky, far away. And for me, gradually, I feel like the more I meditated, the more comfortable I got, right? I did this at a group setting at first. At first, I'd be, a little cautious to do it at home alone. I'm like, oh, what if I see something? What if I'm not doing it the right way? You're doubting yourself, the ego. That's part of the process. Now, eventually, if you have a partner or a friend that's into it, great, then you can do it at home. But if you're alone, it's like you just do it when you're with your crew. You don't want to do it alone. I get it. And I recommend at first, learn it with people. Learn it the right way, because it's always good to have a couple sets of eyes. Hey, what is that? What is that? Oh, it's a satellite. Now, when I started, there were no satellite trackers. There were no star charts. There were no iPhones. 2011, I don't remember, but we didn't have those things that point at the sky like they do now. It was totally different. It was all by eye, which was actually really cool because you got very good at saying, oh, that's that planet. Oh, that's that. Oh, that's a comet, or, So great. Do all that stuff. Go through the ups and downs. Learn that stuff. You're looking all over the sky trying to find something. Now, when I do it, I just look at one part in the sky, and I saw lights from a distance. Then they would get closer. Why? Because I would say, come closer. I would say, if you feel safe and it's okay with, the people that are around and the environment I'm in, you can come closer. And I would see craft far, far away out at sea, a few inches from me. And I would see craft sometimes, meaning a ball of light or something out at sea. As it would come closer, I would see it at a distance. I remember seeing it, meditating, and then looking next to me, and there'd be a light, literally a tiny light 6 inches from me, to a physical outline, an actual physical outline. Now, when people say, is it the physical being? Is it them? Are they coming? Are they in solid form? Are they communicating? My understanding is, when I've seen them, it's been fast, like a few seconds. And I'm like, why are they just here and then gone? They said, number one, there are detection systems around for even when our craft are around. They have satellites everywhere. They could see us. So if we're taking physical form, probably going to get visits, and also the environment you're in. If we were to go to Mars right now like this, we die instantly because of the environment. Our body wouldn't be able to handle the atmosphere, okay, because of the toxins, whatever might be there, the radiation, whatever. Supposedly, from what they've told me, the ETs, the same thing here. Not all extraterrestrials can take their natural form here because of the environment. They said if we took our natural form here, Andrew, we would die instantly. So that's why it's so fast. They come, room, they take the form, and then boom, gone. And then when you see the orbs, okay, or the balls of light, or these things come in, a lot of those, it's almost like drone, probe. So they're sending, some of them are unmanned and some are manned. They're not all manned, okay? So some of them are just for observation. And then, yes, there's other ones that, oh, no, there's something in that. How do I know the difference? Usually the ones that are observation are far away. If there's something in there, like I said, they'll come close. I've seen them come through the wall and then an outline, it's literally the outline of what the being is. Now, when it's a being, they've explained to me too that only they can operate their craft. So when we're trying to make craft and reverse engineer them, never going to happen. It's almost the way they described it is that the ET, the occupant, the pilot, right? You want to call it the pilot of a plane, the pilot of the craft, part of the craft. So he needs to be in the craft to fly the craft, or you need to be with him. I want to be clear, I've never been on a craft, I've never flown a craft. Anyone that says that, oh, that's just not my experience. But anyway, maybe that's theirs. They have to be on the craft. They operate the craft. That is their craft. They are one with the craft. There's no, there's no controls. They just operate it, they said, through thought, consciousness, that, whatever that means. What does that mean? I don't know. I haven't been to their planet either. I want to be clear. I've only seen them come, a ball of light on the ground, take a shape. It's really quick. Boom, gone. I remember I got one photo once of it's the hand, the outline of a hand. Now, it's not a human hand. Why? Because they're not human. It's not going to be human. But what looks like a hand, yes, it was taking form. And I remember just taking it. I was outside in Brooklyn. I just took pictures around me with no flash, just took pictures around me. And the outline of the hand, it was like brown, just that one being I saw. I was able to get the hand, and then boom, gone. But I did get one photo of it. It almost looks, what I saw in that photo, in that in the state it was in. It wasn't fully formed yet, but it was forming. But it's almost like it was a hologram. I've also heard of some beings that they project what they look like. So they're somewhere else. They're on a craft or they're in the sky, but they will project in a hologram what they look like to you. So they don't have to take their natural state. So they don't have to come in the natural form and possibly get exposed. They have the ability and technology to project and send what they look like to you to show you. Boom, and then they take off.
I don't know what to do with that information.
And it's the thing, like, I wish this thing was straightforward and maybe fully understand science better, right? Spirituality is a big part, but I believe it's got to be a mix. It's got to be the science and spirituality. The more we can get those two worlds to come together, I think with what you see going on in the world, we talked about disinfo agents. If anyone says they were ex-military and they were counter intel in the military and they're talking about the subject, still doing it. Okay. That's my experience with this. So I'm always skeptical. I'm always skeptical of people that said, oh, I did counter intel for the US military and we know how big of a deal the subject is. So I'm just doing this because it's the right thing. Once again, use your intuition, let it be your guide. But the experiencer, the person that has nothing to gain and everything to lose by bringing this forward, that's who I want to talk to. Because why? Why would you want to talk about this? Because you're after it. You're on the journey. You're still on the journey. You don't have all the answers. You're not the military. You're not the government. You just get the answers. Having the experiencer come together and mix with a scientist or scientists, which is something I'm still doing with a bunch of them, I think that's where we can make a little bit better sense of this. I don't know if we'll fully know. I don't know if we're not meant to know. Maybe we're not meant to know everything, because then it would kind of ruin it. It's like, hey, people say, hey, why don't they just land and get off the craft? I said, if they landed on the White House lawn or right here and got off, my neighbors would come out, look at them, and then go back in and keep watching Netflix. And then it'd be over, and they'd be like, okay, they're here, great. Like, I think some of us would be affected, change, would think it's fascinating, and then you'd get a lot of people that would just, all right, well, they're not paying my taxes. I got to get to work. Okay, because why? Because they brought this subject out, and they desensitized us so much with it. It's like so muddy and confusing that if it happened, I think people would just be like, all right, whatever, I got to keep doing what I got to do. Where if they knew the implications and the people on TV, if they really talked about the important part, the soul aspect, the things we're talking about, this connection, all of these things, not, oh, they're a threat. Oh, we don't know what they are. They know exactly what they are. Stop it. They've been studying these things since the beginning of time. Stop it. That is such nonsense. If we really talk about the important part, wow, it's not just us. Oh, wow. I also know that it opens up the door with the abductions and all the stuff we talked about. And I know the government will never, ever, ever, ever address that there are teams out there in sub or paramilitary organizations taking people or stimulating an abduction. There's no way.
That's criminal. So, punishable by
we'll
imprisonment or even death, quite frankly, for doing some stuff like that. So that's why I have a hard time believing it as well. Is I don't think any government, or I don't want to believe any government at least, would do something so hideous to its own people.
That's a tough thing to accept. And knowing too, like, I know a lot of great people just in life. I was a mortician in a funeral home here in Australia for a couple of years when I moved here. So I've also worked with families and helped them, get through that process and everything. I've met everything, worked with everything, been there, seeing all sides of this. And military people, most of them are usually very serious. They love what they do. Police fire, they're very, very, believe in the country and serving. So to know that there's this other side of some deception or something from our own government. I know some guys that will go into the grave. You cannot convince them. It doesn't matter what proof you have. They refuse because it goes against what's encoded in them in their DNA. And I'm speaking from experience, coming from a family like that, to realize, whoa, there may be more to this. But if I don't come forward and share what I'm sharing, I look at it like no one else is gonna. I don't wait on anyone else. So if I don't do it, no one's gonna do it. And then to my children, if I don't do what I'm doing and share my truth, I'm a fraud to them. That's how I look at this.
I really appreciate you coming forward, and I know this isn't the first time for you either, but I think it's inspiring, but also I mean, for some, okay, so let's say anybody that I know doesn't really know anything at all about this topic, which is another reason why I'm, doing whatever it is we're doing here, is to potentially reach out to people who don't know it, because it's starting to become in the news. You're a former firefighter for New York City and a former Coast Guard, and very credible. And it's one thing to hear about a sighting, right? But then to talk about experience, maybe even is okay. But then to also talk about some of these other more wild topics is, I don't know what to make of it, really. I wonder if in some way people might, like, we're just getting used to the idea of these physical objects in the sky. The government's admitted they're real. They don't know what they are. Is it too far of a leap to say already some of what you just said? Because it's off-putting, to say the least. I don't know. I don't think this is coming out the right way. Stuart, can you help me on that, or Andrew? Does it make sense of what I'm trying to convey?
No, I get it. It's like a dark night of the soul. It's disturbing information. So, and a lot of this is, and there are positive factions and negative factions, as I mentioned in earlier podcasts. And some of the things Andrew's talking about parallel, he mentioned Robert Monroe Institute, where they're working on basically astral projection. There's a thing called the macabre, which people know from esotericism. And I imagine they're trying to replicate that kind of alternating fields with electronic means. So a lot of what he's saying makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. You can go deep into many areas with this. I've realized for me personally, I like to always stay around people, and I always like just being a regular person. You know what I mean? Working regular jobs. I could have done this 15 years ago, gone down this hole and made this my life, really. But I always stayed around working regular jobs because I really, really wanted to study the human condition, whatever this is. And I'm just still fascinated by it. But I know now, like I said years ago, I was seeing things about happening, times, things lining up. I knew now this was the time. This is the year. This is the time to, all right, we're all in. We're all in now. This is what I've done. I've gathered my research. I'm still going, but I've gathered what I've gathered. I'm going to relay that. I need to keep pushing this because I know that the people are coming forward now. I couldn't have had this talk 10, 15 years ago with people at the Times, New York Times, or CNN or Fox, whereas right now I could call one of them on the phone and have a talk for 3 hours and say, all right, when do you want to, do something? So we're there, and I go, all right, it's going to the point where we can have this conversation. Once again, start, you got to go gentle, not just diving right into abductions or all those things, but eventually that stuff needs to be addressed, because why should someone want to be ashamed or not relay what really happened to them when they're just a victim, man? Or, they got nothing to do with that. Hey, man, I didn't ask for that, or I don't know what that is. I don't know what happened to me. Why would someone want to mess with me? Well, because the secrecy behind this, whatever the true nature of this is, wherever this is coming from and how it's getting here, and the fact that they're not coming here on regular, diesel fuel or gasoline in their car, that fact that they have free energy, or they're using the fabric of space to somehow get here, that secret is so powerful. I don't get into that. I don't touch that thing. I won't. I don't even want to know. That's the one area I'm like, I don't know enough about it. I'm not a scientific guy. That's not for me to talk about. And people I know that get into that usually disappear. So I don't even go into that, because in that, once again, there's a level you can go to, but where am I going to go with that? I don't know enough about that. I commend people that do that. I think that the system that we're in is set up a certain way. They'll reveal things. Why? I feel if the people lead, we pretty much will force the leaders to follow, but they'll go to a certain point, right? They'll talk about this. They are talking about this. Why? Because the people are. It's the talk. That's why they're talking about. Because so many of us have, but there's a cutoff. They're dangled this, like carried in front of us at the Pentagon, have all these hearings, but then it's like, well, then that's classified. We can't go there. Why? Well, we can't reveal it's a drone. Come on, man. We're way past that. So all I know is I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, and grassroots people, guys like yourselves, by having these talks, you're allowing people to have a safe space to come forward to say, hey, I don't know, or maybe I think I know, and I'm open to the possibility of learning and changing and growing. And so am I. If I learn something or it changes, I always say, hey, it's not what I thought it was. That person changed. Most people I've met in this field have come and they're not even around. I can't even bring them up. They're just not around. They disappear or they're a whack job or whatever. But the long old school ones, Greer, he's still around. He's still ticking. He's still going, still doing his thing. The guy that mentored me in psychic development, Robert Hansen, still going, still doing his thing. I've been very fortunate to be around some real great people that helped solidify a foundation for me. And I'm going to pass that on. I pass it on to people I meet, people I train with, people I just pass along my knowledge, the good, bad, the ugly. It just is what it is. I'd rather have this conversation if I look back than not have had this. Oh my God, it's changed my life and changed my beliefs and my systems and opened me up to, well, maybe there's something else, as opposed to, no, it says this in this book and that's that. I'm not budging. It's so narrow-minded. Part of science, right, is to have a theory, but you're open to changing that theory based on new information. So we're not scientists, but yet we're kind of doing little studies on our own. And as we get more info, great. Let's just keep analyzing it, see what happens.
Well, theoretical physicists are postulating that we live in a simulation. Now, I know some of the things we've talked about here seem pretty wild, but that's the wildest one of all. The whole thing we're existing in is a holograph. Now, that's some heavy stuff. And those scientists are reaching out to people such as Andrew, the type of people, to ask, hey, now, how can you inform this hypothesis? What do you know? So they're taking that kind of exploration seriously, which I find really fascinating.
Oh yeah, I just got asked to do another study for a PhD. I meet a lot of people that are doing the PhDs in psychology, and I'm doing one now recently with a lovely person who's a medium as well, and about homicides and psychic mediums and how they're helping them. And I've done them in the past with people about psychics and contact and the psychological implications after and the post effects. And this is great. And that is, once again, that's for free. That's just for fun. I love that stuff. That's what it's all about. I mean, I care less about the other nonsense. That I just love having those talks. Wow, highly educated people where 10 years ago, they wouldn't have called me. Are you kidding me? 20 years ago, no way. Now I'm having regular talks with people that are literally A-list actors to my neighbors. My neighbors know. Hey, what are you doing outside? We see you with the camera. I tell them now. And they watch me on TV and they're like, oh my God, that's really cool. Oh, my daughter's into that, maybe this, that. So, wow, we're in different times. That wouldn't have happened 20 years ago.
Oh, definitely not. Now, if we're living in a hologram, then the question is, who is creating it? And I imagine they've started to realize that we are collectively. So then it brings you to the point where, okay, if people's consciousness are changing, then the reality is going to change. And there would be some resistance to that kind of change.
It's interesting. There was a guy I believe he went to Peru. I think he lives in Colorado. This man claimed he went to Peru and found like this door. Him and his wife were there. And he claimed that he meditated in this door and he ended up in this white box, kind of like the Matrix. And he heard a voice say,
is this Jerry Wells?
Maybe,
Sounds
yeah.
like it.
And he basically was like, oh, you can hear me? Yeah, yeah. And that's what I'm like, wow, is that happening here? It's something like that. I think there's definitely some sort of intelligent creator and that there's some sort of unconditional love that no matter what you do, you're
Beautiful.
welcome to reconnect with source. Now, in the subsets, so if it's a multi-dimensional reality, there's this one, unconditional loving source, and then based on where you are, the humans or whatever is there have the free will to do right, do wrong, and then the system is set up. So people think, oh, you have free will here. Maybe you don't have free will in another country or another reality or whatever. I think it's just the system. Once again, how you program the program like a computer program. So it's how we're programmed. But ultimately, it's just to gather this info. And I interviewed Tina Torres yesterday. She was amazing. And she said to me, yeah, even if you do, you go the dark path or a negative path, she goes, I have to say, wow, that requires a tremendous amount of courage to go that deep into something and go to that place of darkness and to even possibly come back. She goes, I couldn't, but to people to do that, wow, they're really going deep to get that information. And that's not for everyone. I'm like, I never looked at it like that. I don't agree with it. I think it's awful, but once again, you have that free will. Hopefully, wherever you are, you're just in a system where you can get some more positive guidance, but yet we're in this dualistic reality, this yin and the yang. So I think there has to be conflict with this difference of opinion where we are right now. I think mostly the overall people are good, man. majority of people are awesome. There's just always those few small ones that you're not going to agree with. And, I don't think it's going to change. I think it's meant to be that way. I don't know if we're going to break out of this matrix, break out of the system. I think that the program is set to be this way. And I don't want to be around for the computer to crash either. If that really happens, I don't want to be here. No, I like it. You know what I mean? Overall, I'm happy. I like it. So.
Like the latest Y2K bug coming up in our future.
Rapture, let me tell you that too. I have never once ever had any sort of communication from anything, a relative, a spirit, an ET, an angel, or anything saying the rapture's coming next week or on July 26th. I've never, ever, me personally. And if I do, I will let everyone know. Never, ever. If anything, it's the opposite. Oh, you guys are good. Just keep doing what you're doing. And it's up to you. It's up to you. Once again, it's not up to us. It's up to you. Stop looking outside.
Now, Jesus was trying to show us that we can alter our consciousness and the reality. In fact, he went as far as to say, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can tell this mountain to throw itself into the sea and it will. In addition to that, if you believe these stories, and I do personally, that it was changing water to wine, bringing people back from the dead, resurrecting from the dead. So I know some of these topics we're talking about here seem very strange, but if you're a Christian, you've read similar things in the Bible.
Every text based on where I've traveled. So I'm from New York, but like I said, I was in the Coast Guard. I traveled all just past America. Then I've been to, Sweden, Switzerland, Ireland, Germany, 5 times, several times. I've been everywhere. And I've done what I do here, every one of those places. And I've talked to the locals too. And it's a similar thing. There's a book somewhere that people really like, and then there's a good guy, and then there's these bad guy, and then there's these things in the sky that kind of appear, take off, and disappear, and everyone's trying to figure out, when are they coming back? So imagine, I go outside at night, I call to my grandmother, or a craft, or someone. I will say, if you can hear me, if there's something out there that you're paying attention, you can see me, you can hear me, give me a sign. The confirmation of that sign for me is, boom, an object will appear right while I'm looking in the sky, a glowing ball of light. And then when it appears, it'll move, usually odd, irregular, something odd, unique, and then boom, disappear at some point. Imagine when people went to church on Sunday and they were calling to whoever, a loved one, Jesus, anyone that's there in the room saying, oh my God, please, do you hear me? Please show me a sign, give me something. And imagine Jesus or someone manifested in church. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. That actually a physical manifestation for everyone to see. Now, I've never experienced that in church, not me. But when I've been in a CE5 group or I've been outside, something appears. And it's not telling me, like I said, to do something negative. In fact, I personally believe it saved my life. So if that's negative or whatever people want to think, you can think whatever you want. I'm here to tell what happened. So if that's bad, then there's no convincing anyone. You know what I mean? I'm not here to convince you, but if you can't be open to the fact that, oh my God, something intervened in that guy's life, he's alive. That's up to them. But wow, I know for sure in my heart, I wouldn't be here right now, and neither would my coworkers if I didn't listen to that.
Okay, so that's a very interesting point. With the idea that, if 500 people are in church and they, try to call upon a loved one or Jesus himself, when you're going to CE5, I kind of think that most people or all the people there who are in attendance are of the belief that it will actually work. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think a lot of people that go to church, no offense to you people, but you don't necessarily believe or know why you're there and don't really participate. So if you're in a church setting and people are asking to see Jesus, maybe it doesn't happen because the people who are there don't actually believe what they're... what do you think? I guess it's in a way, it's like the observer effect, but it's a power of intentions, perhaps, which we've touched upon in previous episodes. Do you think that has anything to do with the... return communication from the CE5 protocol?
So I've had people in the CE5 group say, just here with my wife, I'm just hanging out for the night, but whatever, I'm just here though, if it comes, whatever, but I could care less, dude. Honestly, I think this is a little freaky, but I'm open. I'm not mocking. So as long as someone isn't being childish, like I'm mocking you, they're just like, maybe. So we're in the group, we're all seeing something. Now, some people will say when that happens, they're like, oh, I see something on the ground. I see something 3 foot tall. a gray being walking around. And I'm like, I don't see that. I don't see that. But people in the group would say that. Now, years later, guy saying, hey, do you see that little being walking near you? And they're like, no, dude, I don't see anything. And I'm like, there's something near you. Trust me, I see it. I feel that as we develop this muscle, as we train the brain inside of our brain, they call it the antenna. Dr. Gary Nolan calls it the antenna. As you train this thing through meditation, out-of-body experience, NDE, contact, this muscle gets trained, you open up, the veil lifts, whatever you want to call it, and then you could see more of this, where if you went into church and they said, okay, as long as you're open and you're coming here and you're open to receiving, okay, great, come in. If you're not, don't, because we don't want to ruin, once again, the collective energy. And then those people went in, and then, oh, wow, you might have a different result. Maybe. I don't know. That probably hasn't happened because it's open to anyone. But CE5, I always prefer to do it only with like one or two people. Why? Because then I know the output that we're sending out is the same or pretty much. When you're in a big group, you never know. It's a mixed bag.
That's interesting.
Wow. What a brilliant point.
So I don't know.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm not a doctor by any means, but with Dr. Gary Nolan, do you happen to know if he was referring to the basal ganglia as the antenna in the brain?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. That's all that. Yep. I like to just, when I'm interviewed, people keep it real simple with the antenna. Like, oh yeah, I could relate to that. But yeah, he's written papers and written about this. But yeah, basically, yeah, he's done studies on this. And oh yeah.
I only asked that because in one of our previous episodes, I think it was Kevin Day mentioned the basal ganglia as being an antenna for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty interesting that
he knows.
We're starting. There's themes already, as Stuart was interested in from the beginning. We're starting to get some themes here from people who don't know what other people have said so far, because we're just starting to put this stuff out there. It's pretty wild.
It's amazing, yeah. And I had never heard of that before. So he had said to me, you're an antenna. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, you could send and receive, like an antenna being extended. And I'm like, oh, that's a great way to look at it, right? So you train this thing, it extends, or you're saying, all right, I want to make contact. Your antenna goes up. They are aware, wow, his antenna is moving up. Let's give him a signal back. And then, oh, wait, this antenna is two-way. I could send and receive. So then that made sense to me. Wow. I could send this out to whatever's out there, or I could just sit and go, okay, show me. And then it works both ways. Very simple. I mean, that's a great way to understand it.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I mean, yeah, it's you never know where these conversations are going to go. They're always fascinating. And, just like our disclaimer says, we're not advice, just talking here. Take it as you wish, right? But Andrew, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it, and I think we definitely would like to have you back as well. And it seems like we're just sort of scratching the surface here, and maybe we're digging a little bit more into it. But I have a feeling that there's a lot more to go. But with that said, if where can people find information about you if they want to learn more about you, or maybe even reach out to you?
Yeah, it's really easy. If you just go to my website. It's the psychicfirefighter.com. Real easy. Just go there. All my contact info's there. I'm on every social media platform under the same name, the Psychic Firefighter, or just Psychic Firefighter. Instagram, TikTok, everything. All my UFO videos are on all my platforms. The TV show I was in, everything's up. I share everything that I experienced. I put it all up there. And if people want to contact me, yeah, just go to my website, go there. And I also do mediumship, so I will connect people just like I had done for me. I'll connect them with their loved ones, their guides, all sorts of things. Just go to my website. All the info's there. If you need anything, reach out to me. And if you need a referral, you look for someone, same thing. I can tell you about who I've trained with, who I've met, because it's so important to be with the right people. Surround yourself. The 5 people you have around you, your closest 3 to 5 people, you're probably going to be like them or act like them. So you want to have solid people around you that have your back, and especially on this journey, because it's easy to get discouraged or to bail when things don't go your way, or, a curveball comes in life. So I've made it now, 15 years so far, being around this stuff, over 20 years now, overall. So yeah, just keep at it if you're out there. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Awesome. Absolutely wonderful.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is great. Thank you so much.
Well, there's a lot there, Mike. I've heard a lot of that before, but not all of it. And there was some new revelations for me and very thought-provoking questions from you, my friend. I loved what you said about the church. And then Andrew picked up on that about people being of the same mindset. And it's really just, I'm going to go away and really ponder that. I mean that.
Well, cool. Thank you. It was just, sort of came up in the moment when he was saying that. And it's like, I wonder if that, has anything to do with it. So yeah, I mean, I hope I wasn't disrespectful with any of my questions, most specifically about Dr. Stephen Greer, because I have respect for him as a person and what he's doing, for the overall, disclosure movement, as it were. But I do have my skepticisms on the contact aspect, and then also those other, human abductions versus actual ET abductions. I don't know what to think of that. I truly don't. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Mike, well, listen, I love doing this show with you because you bring that skepticism, and I'm skeptical too. Like I've said in earlier shows, I'm not just simply open. I'll give everything a hearing, and I'm not instantly accepting of everything, but it's good because you're voicing the questions of the audience potentially, because they might be thinking exactly what you're saying, and I really respect that you state those questions during the interview.
Okay, good. Yeah, I felt. I don't know. It was. I felt a little uneasiness, and I don't know why that was, but like I said, I hope it comes across correctly and not like I'm trying to be disrespectful in any way of anyone. But yeah, with that. We're always juggling a couple of different people and different schedules. So we've sort of come to a new tradition of me announcing the next person coming up at the end in our officially licensed T-shirt, which there's only one of which in the world, by the way. But and that's because we don't necessarily know. There's 4 other people we're talking with right now, so we don't know who's going to come first in terms of our scheduling.
I was going to say I'm enjoying the journey, and like you mentioned during this interview, the different linkages that are occurring between the interviewees' statements, and just seeing where it goes organically. I'm really liking it.
Yeah, it's just putting all the pieces together, and we don't have a lot of questions pre made. It's just where the conversation takes us. So again, hopefully the folks out there are having the same experience that we are, and appreciate the raw, imperfect perfection that seems to be coming out here.
Love it.
Join us next time when we talk with Dr. Joanna Kuyava, PhD. We're going to talk about the spiritual implications of UAP and AI. Another conversation you're not going to want to miss. Thank you so much for your likes, comments, and subscribes thus far, and please do keep them coming. The biggest compliment you can give us is to share these conversations all across your social media. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you real soon.